Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while, but as you can see, I am a new mom, so my time is super limited. But I figured, hey, just throw up a video. This topic you want to discuss or topic you want to, do a video on, get it in and throw it up there, or else like you're never gonna get it done. So yeah, as the title suggests, we're gonna be talking about my labor story, specifically preeclampsia and eclampsia, what that looks like. In my case that is, as well as just the whole ordeal. So let's just jump into it because my mom's watching the baby. Before you know it, I'm gonna hear a knock at the door with baby wanting some milky. So anywho, so I guess we'll start off with a little bit of my history. So I didn't develop preeclampsia until maybe like, I want to say week 20, I want to say. I didn't feel any different, but when I went to the doctor, of course, they determined that my blood pressure was a little bit elevated. Now, prior to that, I had always had low blood pressure, which is super strange that now would have high blood pressure. Well, I guess it's not too strange because upon further research, I found that a lot of people do in fact develop this particular illness, if you will, when pregnant. So the doctor said, look, we're not going to prescribe anything at this time. If we have to induce labor a little bit earlier, I think they were saying they're going to induce labor maybe around week 34, 36. They would, but it wasn't like a reason for alarm just yet. So after that diagnosis, if you will, I started to develop swelling in my hands and feet. But again, when I went to the doctor, they said it was nothing to worry about because oftentimes in pregnancy, women develop these things anyway. I was still feeling normal as can be in, your third trimester. But for the most part, everything was cool. There was no protein found in my urine at that time as well. This is early on. I did, however, need to do a series of stress tests. The last one that I took was a little bit scary because the baby was not responsive. It didn't pass, he didn't pass the stress test, if you will. And the ultrasound tech at my office had gone home for the day. So they were like, look, get yourself to the hospital just to be safe. We need to do an ultrasound. And when we went to the ultrasound, everything was fine. So I'm thinking that, all of these things probably tied in to the preeclampsia. I have a little notebook here because I feel like I don't want to miss anything. All right, so let's jump into when labor started to develop. On the Saturday before delivery, that night I had Braxton Hicks the entire night, back to back, like no break at all. What felt like no break at all. I didn't get any sleep whatsoever. So my Braxton Hicks were not painful at all, but they were just annoying. And I had gotten Braxton Hicks in the past, but not back to back like that. So that was the first telltale sign that labor was probably on the way. So that happened. My friend came in from Toronto to visit. I got her at the airport, and we did a little bit of shopping, and then we went out for lunch. That was that's still the Saturday. So we went out for lunch, and no, I picked her up on the Saturday. I had period cramps, or felt like period cramps on the Saturday, and they started to intensify. By the Sunday, that's when we went out for late lunch, early dinner. And on the way there in the Uber, my period cramps started to I said intensify, but it felt like, I would say, a really bad period, or when you had like your worst cramps. And now that I think back on it, the pain was coming like in intervals. They weren't regular intervals, but like I would feel pain for a few minutes, or a few seconds rather, and then it would subside. And then, 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, so on and so forth, I'd kind of feel the same thing. Now, towards dinner, the end of dinner, I was starting to feel uncomfortable. The pain was just, I don't know, it was getting too much. And I was like, I think we need to go home. And we went home. My boyfriend was assembling, some last minute things. I was telling him about my day. I'm like, look, I don't feel good. I just want to put everyone on notice that I think something is happening. I don't think my friend or my boyfriend believed me at the time. And maybe more on that later, but I think they probably thought I was exaggerating. At this point, I was 38 weeks pregnant. So I was technically due on June 8th, and I had him on May 29th. Okay, so went to bed maybe around midnight, and I will say I went to bed in a great deal of pain. I wouldn't describe the pain as feeling like period cramps, but it was just uncomfortable. Oh, and before I went to bed, I actually called the hospital because I'm like, this is not normal. Let me call and see what they have to say in terms of like if I should come in. The lady who answered the phone was super rude. She was like, did they not discuss how this works with you? I was like, I mean, they had, but I mean, I'm a first-time mom. I didn't know what to expect. All I knew is I was feeling super uncomfortable. I didn't know if it was labor. I don't know if it was a contraction. I don't know. I don't know what any of this stuff feels like. So anyway, she's like, if you're not high risk, you know, don't worry about it. She's like, do you have any pre-existing conditions that may make you high risk? And I was like, well, I had COVID previously, and that technically makes you high risk if you have COVID in pregnancy. You know, if you're over the age of 35, which I am, that's another reason for being high risk. I don't know if they would necessarily describe preeclampsia as that, but I also mentioned that. So the nurse was like, look, if your water hasn't broken, sit tight. Okay. So, you know, I hung up the phone. I was like, whatever. She said also, you know, when you have contractions, you'll know when you're having contractions. And let me say, that is very true. When contractions start, you'll know it's time. So I went to bed around 2 a.m. I want to say. I felt like a pop. It was the strangest sensation. It woke me up, and I knew immediately my water had broke. I don't know how I knew that, but it was something innately inside of me. I'm like, my water broke. So I jumped out of bed. I ran to the bathroom, and as soon as I sat on the toilet, water started gushing. And my boyfriend came in. He was like, you're not peeing? I was like, no. He's like, okay, yeah, definitely, your water broke. So, you know, I get out of the bathroom, I start to get ready. Water is still, you know, trickling out of me. Because again, this is my first time. I didn't know I should probably like put on one of the postpartum underwear or something. Like, I didn't know. I thought like it just trickles out of you and that's it. No, honey. I was dripping water or fluid all through this room. So I started to get dressed, and instantly the pain hit me. Pain, aka the contractions, hit me like a brick. Like, I had never felt anything like that in my life, and I'm sure many of you moms can attest to the pain. So I slowly started to put on my clothes. I alerted my friend like, hey, we need to go to the hospital right now. But I would say like every 2 minutes, like the contractions were taking me out, honey. Like, I couldn't speak, I couldn't move, and it was literally as soon as my water broke. So I had a contractions monitoring app on my phone, thank God. So we jumped in the car. I delivered in Boston, which is like 30 minutes away from where I actually live. The longest 30 minutes of my life. I had my friend, you know, document the contractions or note the contractions. They were coming every 2 minutes. Most people do not have contractions every 2 minutes as soon as their labor starts, active labor starts. I unfortunately had contractions every 2 minutes. So what I'd have to do is like every time a contraction came on, like I would brace, I would like dig my feet into the floor mat. Don't ask why I didn't watch really any video to prepare myself. Like, I just went into this super blind. Don't do that, because I didn't even know how to breathe properly. I was like dying. But I mean, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. There really wasn't much traffic, and we like hammered it all the way to Boston. All right, so what else? See, I don't want to miss anything. There's so many details, right? Okay, so when I get to the hospital, they tell me that I'm 2 centimeters dilated, and I feel like I am about 10, because that's how intense the pain is, right? So they do their intake. I'm like, listen, hurry up. Whatever you got to do it. I need an epidural. Like, I don't care that, no, I wasn't 2 centimeters, sorry, I was 3 centimeters. Not that it really makes a difference, but I was 3 centimeters dilated. So at this point, my contractions now are coming 1 minute apart, okay? Everything started at 2. And I went from 2 minutes apart to like 1 minute apart. So they get the anesthesiologist in there to give me the epidural. The epidural does not work, okay? The doctor realizes that I'm laboring super hard, and she gives me some sort of medication to slow down the labor. But when she does this, she ends up slowing down the baby's heart. So now the baby's in distress, and I can hear the baby's heart actually going down, because you know they have the bands hooked up to you. They're monitoring the baby while you're in active labor. So I can actually hear my baby's heart beat, you know, declining. So they're like trying to turn me and try to readjust my stomach to try to get the baby moving. It's not working. So at this point, actually before that, they had to give me another dose of the epidural, and it worked. So it took 2 doses. It was super hard because I had to sit still for the epidural while contracting every 1 minute. And at that point, I had to take the epidural while I was experiencing contraction, because they were just coming so frequently. And they said, look, we have to get it because the pain's only gonna, we have to give it to you because the pain's only gonna get worse. So yeah, so the second dose worked. And yeah, again, they were trying to get the baby's heart rate up, but it wasn't coming up. Next thing you know, they're telling me, look, we gotta get this baby out of you. We're gonna do a C-section. Huh? I had not planned for a C-section. I was not anticipating a C-section. Like, I was so looking forward to doing it vaginally, and now I'm being told I have to get a C-section. Anyway, I was just so out of it. I didn't protest. I didn't like. Side note, my boyfriend decided to take a sleeping aid before we got to the hospital, because again, I don't think that he thought that I was really in labor. So, I mean, he couldn't protest or like, you know, ask why, whatever. So next thing you know, I'm being wheeled into the emergency room. That was like, the thing is, before, when they told me initially that I needed a C-section, it didn't set in initially. Although they were like, the doctor was calling this person and that person, people started to run into my room. It didn't hit me until I got into the operating room with all the bright lights and all of the people in there. They had interns in there, various doctors, like a whole team. I have never had an operation before, so this was all very new to me. So yeah, they ended up doing the C-section. To me, the C-section felt like it took all of 5 minutes. They probably do things to distract you. Maybe they begin the operation before you actually know they've begun the operation. But it was super quick. I did not feel any pain. I will say that I felt some pressure, but I didn't feel any pain. So yeah, that took place, and I don't think that I was really aware of, outside of just being shocked that I went from thinking that I'm going to have a vaginal birth to having a C-section, and just, you know, going through the labor itself, which is a new experience. Like, I don't think I was paying attention to any other feelings that I may have had, because apparently my blood pressure soared through the roof right after the C-section, and I had eclampsia, which is high blood pressure after or high blood pressure in general, whether it's after birth or, you know, before delivery. I think at one point my blood pressure was like 175 over 90, something outrageous, honey. And I had not researched preeclampsia or eclampsia before then. I didn't want to psych myself out. I naturally am pretty like nervous, anxious about things, so I didn't look it up. But I will say, when the dust settled, I felt strange. And you know, by then I had full-blown eclampsia. So I guess in the next video, I'll go into more detail about that. So stay tuned. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, share this video with a friend, and I'll see you in the next one.